IT workers, what is the most ridiculous "you're in IT, you have to fix this" request you've received? Not me, and not the guy I knew, but someone he knew. A story from many years ago. This other fellow is a photocopier serviceman. He gets a call from one of their clients about their photocopier not working. He goes through the shortlist with the person on the phone, including, "It's plugged in, right?" The client assures him that everything else is fine, so he grabs his stuff and heads to the client's site. The first thing he looks at when he gets to the copier is the power cord. Sure enough, it's in the socket but not properly seated, so no juice. So with the client there, he stands over the copier in the right spot, lays his hand on top of the copier, and begins chanting. As he reaches the crescendo, out of sight of the client, he lifts his leg and kicks the plug into the socket fully, and the copier comes to life. On the worksheet in the area where he's supposed to describe what actions he took, he simply wrote, "I healed it," and has the client sign it. Had a lady executive use your laptop bag as a wheel chock when her husband changed her tire. She ran over it. She brought it to us and said, "Make this work. I have a presentation in an hour." Then left. We took it out of the bag and it was U-shaped. We laughed at the situation. There was nothing we could do. The hard drive was even crushed. She came back and screamed at us for our incompetence while demanding another laptop, her third in 6 months. Our lead team took the laptop to the VP of Technology. He brought her down to our office and made her apologize and told us she did not get any more laptops. If she wanted to work on the weekends, she had to come into the office. She was fired for sexually harassing a 17-year-old intern. His dad was a senior VP. Lady called to report her monitor wasn't working. After troubleshooting and asking her multiple times if everything was plugged in, she finally pipes up that the monitor doesn't have the light on. The monitor wasn't plugged in and she wanted me to wake a guy up at 3 a.m. to do it because she was dressed too nicely to do it herself as she was preparing for a meeting at 6 a.m. I told her to do it herself because I was not about to wake up the on-call for that. She complained to our director and he literally laughed at her for her reasoning for wanting the on-call sent out, and she is now banned from calling in. One of my first jobs was senior IT admin for a medium-sized company, and on my day off, the CEO called. I had to get in because the mail wasn't working, and also the banking software didn't work. This CEO was primarily responsible for the financial department, so especially this last part was hurting him. When I came in, said CEO was really flaming, basically burning the entire IT department as being incompetent, overpaid freak-ups, and all the loss of business revenue should come out of our pockets, etc, etc. So during this lovely tirade, I come in and in a few seconds, I realized we have a problem with the internet connection. Keep in mind, these were the 90s, so we had a dual ISDN connection and a dial-up modem connected to it. I run a few tests, and instead of the common modem sounds, I hear low-res voice on the line. I connect a regular phone to it, listen to it, and then gave it to the CEO saying, "It's for you." After that, the CEO said nothing and used his mobile to manage his finances. What did the ISDN phone say? "Due to not paying your bloody bill, this line is disconnected. If you want to reinstate the service, you have to pay this amount and admin costs." I went home after that with a very big grin and started looking for another job. What happened to the company? It went bankrupt about a year later. Drove for 2 hours to replace a touchscreen monitor that had stopped responding. It turns out they were wearing gloves. Years ago, I worked for a rather large ISP as a tech lead. A residential DSL customer called in demanding to speak to a supervisor because his internet was down, and he was going to miss out on some multi-million-dollar deal because he couldn't get on the internet. He kept yelling at me throughout the call and demanded I fix it immediately. While troubleshooting the issue, I could see that I couldn't reach the DSLAM his connection ran through. I advised him I would have to reach out to a dispatch center to have a tech go take a look at it. At some point, he informed me that on his way home, he saw that a vehicle had run off the road into one of our boxes and it had caught fire. He still said he was planning on suing our company if he wasn't able to be online to make a supposed deal of his. I passive-aggressively suggested he go to a Starbucks and wished him well with the lawsuit. I work in web development and maintenance. I got a call from a client who was absolutely livid when I told her that she could not take the hyperlink text from her webpage, transfer it over to their print ad, and still have it function as a link. I was asked to fix a cabinet once. I don't mean like a server rack or anything. I mean a literal wooden cabinet with shelves and stuff. Posted this before, but I was a remote tech and had a woman call me and wanted me to drive 6 hours to her facility to turn on her computer because hitting the power button was not her job. The power went out in our building and the owner of the company wanted to know what we were doing to get the computers up. Not my customer, but a trainer was once asked for the stupidest calls he ever took as an agent, and he got this person who wanted to know why their internet wouldn't work. He asked them which lights were on their modem, and they said none. The electricity is out, and he just kind of facepalmed. The owner of a company thought it was a reasonable plan to put gasoline-powered generator in an unused room of our office in the event of a power failure. Not outside, not even on a balcony, but in a room that was interior without windows. I told him if he did that, I and every other sane person there would leave in the event of a power failure. After that, I was told to research the feasibility of putting a pedal generator at every desk. Presumably, he thought everybody could pedal the electricity to keep working. He was literally trying to create a sweatshop. Several employees had a history of heart trouble. I was told it'll be good for them. Our IT help desk eventually ended up keeping fluorescent tubes and whiteboard markers in stock because people would send complaints to the CEO that they were refusing to help when we asked them to contact the office manager for these things. The flip side is that the CEO eventually created a new email address for people to send complaints directly to him. Very few people knew that this special CEO complaints email address actually got forwarded to the office manager. People have the capacity for such unimaginable greatness and such hard to believe stupidity. I was personally once reported for sabotaging a specific secretary by refusing to fix her printer. It was printing garbage. Turns out she installed an Epson color printer driver on her Win95 computer so that her mono HP DeskJet printer would also print color. She reported me the third time I installed the bad driver and asked her not to do it again. I once had to unfreak a friend's computer back in 2005 or so. He wanted to play Half-Life 2, but his video card was too terrible to run it smoothly. So he uninstalled the proper video card driver, went to the NVIDIA website and downloaded the driver for the most powerful new video card they currently had. And then his monitor stopped displaying anything. Who would have thought? I laughed a lot at his stupidity once he explained what he did, but at least he was honest. Went into safe mode and fixed it for him. Got an email from a user one day. The numbers on my keyboard don't work. Alright, not a lot to go on, but probably easier just to give them a new keyboard. I look up the user to figure out where I need to go with the keyboard and see their past logins are only on a work laptop. Alright, better actually email them. Just to confirm, all the other keys on the keyboard work, but not when you use the numbers either on the top row or on the pad to the right. 2 days later, 9 AM, user response. Just the pad on the right. This is really annoying. Can you come to take care of this quickly? Alright, you took your sweet butt time for that reply, but maybe you were out or busy. If it's just a number pad, probably has numlock turned off. I look up the model number, definitely has a numlock key, so I email back at 9:15. It could just be the numlock is turned off. There should be a key called num with a lock on it just above the number pad. Could you press that first, then try to use the numbers and let me know the results? Next day, a user submits a ticket, numbers on the keyboard don't work. Frustrated at this point, I send another email. Is this concerning the issue with the number pad? Were you able to try the numlock key, and if so, how did that turn out? The user sends a new email directly to me and CCs the CEO of our 10,000 employee company. The email says, I've been trying to have this issue resolved for over a week now. Can somebody please come to fix my laptop? The keyboard does not work. I just stare at my screen for a minute. Who the heck is this person? The system says that they are just a CSR. Do they know the CEO? Have I really done anything wrong here? After the initial shock and self-doubt, I realize I'm totally fine, and this guy has got to be the biggest moron in the world. So I walk over to my boss's office and let him know the situation. He's just as dumbfounded when I mention the CCing the CEO part. Says he'll look into it, but for now, just go down and fix the issue. So I walk over to this guy's station and he looks like he's 18. He tells me the same things I already knew from the emails. I lean over him, open a notepad, press a couple of keys, and as I suspect, everything's working fine, but the number pad is moving the cursor around. Press the numlock key and then type again, numbers appearing. I just deadpan the guy, need anything else? And he, of course, doesn't understand. It just says, no, but I can't believe it took you guys a week to figure that out. Knowing nothing good comes from this, I just say have a good one and leave. Get back to my office. The boss is laughing his butt off as I tell him what happened. He follows up with an email to the guy's supervisor, CCing their manager and myself as well, basically retelling the story in full. Last I heard, the manager chewed out the supervisor and the supervisor chewed out the CSR. Danged if I know if an idiot that thick learned anything though. Ugh, I hate the passive-aggressive CCing. When that happens at my work, I CC the IT director, who is personal friends with the owners of the company and had a single-digit employee number. That tends to shut down any bullcrap real quick. Once had a person call into the IT desk because the soda machine stole their money. Oddly enough, this is actually a perfectly acceptable solution for a broken soda machine at my second job. If the machine breaks and it's urgent, you call IT. Pick hardware support, and one of the options in the menu is vending support line. Refunds just come from a box we keep in the safe though. Vending company gives us money for the refund box when they come stock the machine. I've somehow become the Apple guy at my work. We recently received a batch of brand new iPad Pros, and within a week, I received a repair request due to a screen malfunctioning. Turns out by screen malfunctioning, they meant completely destroyed, shattered, like it had been continuously hit with a hammer. Lady is giving vague explanations about what happened, thinking about how it might have fallen off her desk and onto the carpeted floor. But apparently this is something I can fix? She needed it for a meeting that afternoon. I had to explain that this isn't something we can fix, that I'll need to go through Apple for a replacement device. Shocking news apparently. I got a call to remove a plug on the radio and push the wire through a small vent in the cabinet because the wire was unsightly. Did this while 15 executives watched. None of them knew how to change a plug and had never even seen the inside of one, but because it had a wire, it was IT's responsibility. I'll start. One time, somebody at a company asked me, "Why isn't the microwave working? You're in IT after all, fix it." I thought they were joking, but after a bit of deliberation, they were either serious or very committed to the role. I jokingly said that IT should have to fix anything with a power cord or batteries, and the owner agreed. IT still hates me for that. My rules to help people understand what I do for a living in IT are, I'm not electrically qualified, so if it has a plug, I'm not taking it apart. I don't use power tools at work. I refuse to have them, and if we need shelves, cabinets, etc., as far as I'm concerned, it's a maintenance job. Just because it has a panel, button, interface, or switch on it does not mean I'm qualified to operate it. I'm not IT, but I have to support our product for 1-week intervals periodically. The worst call went like this. "Hi, company name off our support, can I help you?" "It's not working." Okay, what's not working?" The thing, it doesn't work at all." "Okay, what are you trying to do when it errors?" "It just crashes when I try to use it." I wound up needing to walk her through every single step from opening our website, logging into the portal, which icon they click, opening Citrix, the utility they use within our program, etc., just to determine where the problem was occurring. Old story. Back in the early 90s, all of Alaska's communication was via satellite. We would get notices from our providers when a solar storm was going to slow down our throughput. I went upstairs to our finance and accounting chief to tell her the nightly processes might be late due to the storm. Her response was, "You're IT, just fix it." Never let her forget that she saw me as a god. Previous IT for a US-based online bank. The sheer amount of calls regarding unsupported devices or user error that customers considered my fault was staggering. We had to accept and troubleshoot every call regardless, and would guess at most 15% of calls ended up being an actual tech issue rather than a problem that exists between chair and keyboard. My favorite though was a man cursing up a storm that he was taking his business elsewhere. He was traveling and his mobile device did not allow access to our site. He had also apparently bought at least 5 phones from a street vendor before calling tech. He refused to allow me to go over the basics like OS and providers and kept saying, "Just do your job." After at least half an hour, but probably longer, I was finally allowed to start off with the basic steps. One of the first questions was OS and provider, all of which were 10 years out of date or were names unfamiliar to me and my list of supported devices. Frustrated, this man complained about where he was stuck, unable to access his online bank. I don't remember the exact location, but I do remember my sadistic glee. This man was vacationing in an OFAC sanctioned country. Basically, he was vacationing somewhere like North Korea or the Congo that the US had issued sanctions against, and our policy did not allow his card or online access in that country. His response? "I don't care. Fix it." Thankfully, after another half hour of me explaining I could not change security policy or the fact he was in a blocked country, he escalated to my supervisor, which made it no longer my problem. Back in my very early career, I had this customer named Mr. Windsor. He was this grumpy older guy and everything was an emergency, and he always was yelling about some IT issue he was having. The most memorable is he called us livid over some site he was getting a forbidden error on. How dare we forbid him from going to his website? I had to patiently explain that there was an issue with that site and he'd have to contact the owner. About an hour later, he calls back, demanding to speak to me personally. He got an email saying he had a fatal error. How dare we wish him to die? Finally figured out that he'd misspelled the email address and the fatal error was coming from the mail system. I just looked up the number to the web company and told him to call. I'd love to know how that conversation went. Anyway, a few days before Christmas, we get a phone call. It's Mr. Windsor. He is slurring his words and clearly been drinking something festive. He called to apologize for being a miserable old duffer and thank us for being patient. Back to his usual miserable self after Christmas, of course. Interesting character. Not necessarily an IT worker, but a computer scientist. But one time, I was at my sister's house and she needed help getting her printer connected, so she asked me, "You know how to do this, help me." And I tried to do it because it was a simple Google search to fix this, but she is breathing down my neck because I'm not getting this solved at the speed she wants me to get it done. Then she drops "Didn't you go to school for this?" on me, and I respond with, "No, I make software that sometimes works." Moral of the story, if you are an IT worker, keep that to yourself. My favorite is when our internet service goes out. Usually when this happens, there is a fiber or cable line down or our ISP is doing general maintenance. I try to explain to baby boomer coworkers that my responsibility ends outside of our local area network and it's our ISP's duty to repair whatever is causing the outage. No matter how many times I try to explain, they don't listen. It's my fault and I'm a lazy piece of do-nothing crap and the reason they can't get their precious internet and email. A couple of simple ones. I got called in to repair a broken printer. The guy was pretty livid as he was trying to print in a hurry. Turns out it ran out of paper. Even worse, I had my boss lose his crap on me that his computer didn't work and made the comment that nothing ever works around here, hinting that I failed at my job. I went into his office and found that he didn't turn it on. I pushed the power button and all I got was an, "Oh, IT support has to be one of the worst jobs. Stupid butt people. Anytime something like a mouse battery dies and you're a piece of crap." I'm an application architect for medical record software. My primary users are physicians and nurses in a clinic setting. There's one specific doctor who will call and give a very vague description to the help desk. She refuses to do a shadow session, refuses to let us get screenshots, and the person from the help desk isn't an application expert, so they're trying to write down her issue and she's using the wrong words. By the time we usually figure out her issue, we could have resolved it in half the time if she just would have taken 2 minutes to speak with us. I've worked for doctors and lawyers. Lawyers and solicitors are way worse. The level of arrogance they seem to have is legendary. If you aren't involved directly in billable work, then you might as well be something they stepped in. God help you if you work for a third-party consultancy. I've had outage windows that was planned months, pulled 10 minutes before commencement, because one of the partners needs to send a single email that evening. Except that the work I was doing would in no way affect the email servers or related to the email sending process. One place I worked, it was pretty much if it got electricity, it was an IT issue. We had to fix the water fountain that wouldn't stop running. We had to fix the coffee machine. All sorts. It wasn't a demand, but I was once called to help get a fish out of a fish tank. It had decided to go on a suicide mission into the pumps, and I had to dismantle it all to get it back out. It died. I'm regularly asked to help hang doors, fix locks, program thermostats and boilers, change time on clocks, even repair people's spectacles, shoes, and anything they carry that could break and look technical. Heck, helping people with their broken down cars or breaking into them when they lose their keys, fixing gates, all sorts. Some of it has electronics, which people assume is an IT specialism when it's not, but often it's just the hands-on nature that they are after. Most people realize it's not my job, but we have the tools, the eyesight, and the fine hand control, the know-how, the ability to find manuals and tutorials quickly, and the work surfaces to do it on. Vague tickets that give no clue as to what's wrong beyond "computer broke." Then you ring them up asking them to fill it in properly, and they get annoyed. "I thought you guys knew what you were doing." Or when the Karens at work drop off their personal laptops or phones and expect us to fix it. That's not what we're here for. I had a guy drop off his personal computer at my desk one day about 15 years ago. Guy didn't even work in my building. No note or email. It sat at my desk for over a week. I threw it away. He came back and asked where his fixed computer was. I told him I threw it out 2 days ago. He went off on me. I told him I don't fix personal stuff while on the clock. He said I should have taken it home and fixed it. I said with no note I had no idea what was wrong with it. I told him I do side work for X per hour, and he told me it's my job to fix computers, so you should have done it for free. I think my laughing at him only made it worse. He wanted money for the computer. I told him, "What computer?" There is no record of me having his computer. I think he went to dig it out of the dumpster. I never talked to him again. I'm studying computer science at university, and I must have gotten at least 10 messages from acquaintances I barely even know, all female, asking me, "You're good at IT, right? Can you please hack this person's Facebook or just their email account? I think my girl's BF is cheating on her and we want to have access and look through his private messages. My friend is willing to pay you." Worked for a small bank. I drove 60 miles out to a branch to fix an issue, and while I was used to getting hit with $1 million saved up while you're here issues, I was not prepared for "the toilet is acting weird. Can you look at it while you're here?" Got a call the scanner in HR was broken. Thought to myself, we don't have a scanner in HR. Go to the office, the lady has Word open and is holding a document to the screen, hitting enter repeatedly. I thought no one would believe me, so I brought about 5 other techs along to corroborate. I'm not an IT worker, but this would happen when I was in school. We used laptops in school on some occasions, and the person's account who would use a laptop the previous lesson would still be logged on. My teacher would really make the IT guy working in the school walk to our class and log accounts on and off because the kids were too stupid to know that all you had to do was log off the previous person's account. Work in networks and used to share an office with people who just basically took situation reports. So when they were out of the office for lunch or called in sick, we'd answer their phones and take notes for when they got back out or next shift came in. So our guy calls out one night and I take a call that some generator somewhere went out. Okay, cool. I wrote it in the log and pass it on for the next shift. Then the boss ends up questioning me on what I did about the generator. Like, what do you expect me to do? Ping it? Would you like me to get its MAC address? It literally has nothing to do with my job. Early in my career, when I still did home user work, I had a client request on an on-site because every time I go get a beer, my computer crashes. Wouldn't crash when he went to the bathroom or anything, just when he went to go get a beer. So I'm staring at this computer and I can see in the logs that there are crashes, but nothing that would help me understand what was causing it, because it's not the beer. Finally, I'm grasping at straws and ask him to show me what he does when it crashes. He says, "I told you, it crashes when I go get a beer." So I'm like, just humor me. He sits down in the chair and then stands up, walks clean to the other side of the house, walks up to this built-in mini fridge, opens it, grabs the beer, closes it, starts walking back and opens the beer, and the computer takes a crap. What the freak? Took about 30 seconds of feeling like the world had gone mad and this dude was like some sort of weird beer magician. When the light bulb came on, the mini fridge was probably on the same circuit as the PC. The compressor in the mini fridge was going bad and drawing too much from the circuit when it kicked in a brownout, and the computer would crash. Dude was right all along. His computer would crash whenever he went to get a beer. Not IT, but I'm a huge computer nerd in a computer illiterate family. We have a family computer in our living room for everyone, and my sister decided to download a bunch of useless programs and viruses. Then the computer began to run really slow. My mother told me to fix it since I was a computer expert. After a quick analysis, I told her that I needed to remove all the junk my sister downloaded. She called my sis and told her everything. Sis is an entitled kid. Sis made a huge tantrum about removing her programs. Then mother told me to remove something else instead of her programs. I argued that that was the only way to get the computer running. Then she claimed that she knew better than me because she's older and wiser. I smugly said, "Fine, you deal with this." Fast forward a couple weeks, the computer crashed and won't work. I got a used laptop for myself. They demanded me to help them fix the computer since I know a lot about computers. I told them to ask my mother since she's older and wiser. Just because you're older, that doesn't make you smarter. Always listen to a computer expert. My dad used to work in software development. One of his coworkers had to call IT because his computer wasn't turning on. Turns out his power strip was plugged in to itself. He never lived that one down. I had a call in the middle of the night from India asking me if I was the administrator for a particular piece of software. I was not. No idea how he got my number. Must have read it off an email chain or something. Got requested to install those under-desk keyboard trays for all the employees in the department a few years back. I had a good laugh and told them where to find the power drill. I'm not even IT, but because I know a thing or two about computers, they gave me the name of IT assistant at my job. The most recent thing was a doctor kept telling me they didn't have Microsoft Word on her computer. For months. I checked every time, they have it. Then yesterday I realized when they said they found it. They'd been saying they didn't have it downloaded because it wasn't on the desktop as an icon. Months of them benching and me checking their computer just to find out I'm dealing with idiots with a PhD.